Welcome to Built to Finish. I'm your host, Stephen Pivnik. Join me each week as we explore the journeys of audacious goal setters. This includes experienced founders, CEOs, and entrepreneurs sharing pivotal moments that propel their success. We'll also be talking with endurance athletes who push the limits of physical and mental ability. This show is brought to you by Acresis, offering tailored, high-impact advisory services to help founders get to their finish line with a strategic acquisition or majority investor recapitalization. Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of Built to Finish. I can't wait to speak with today's guest. She oversees a diverse range of initiatives, including workshops, keynote speaking, board preparation retreats, and personalized advisory services. She's a marketing expert and industry leader, motivator, coach, and consultant, guiding hundreds of senior professionals in advancing their board careers. She has 22 years of experience with various boards of directors and advisory boards. She has also completed 2 full-distance Ironman triathlons. She is the founder and CEO of the Boardroom company. Naomi Kent, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Steve, for having me.
It's great to have you. And we have so many, common interests that this conversation could go in a ton of directions. Let's start with the business first. So from a board of directors perspective, since we have a lot of founders and entrepreneurs listen to the show, when is the right time for a founder to start a board for his or her company?
So I think most boards are probably at the early stage when they think first about, having the right advisors. And I would probably argue that most entrepreneurs have some kind of advisor by their side. I see a lot of founders, they have family members or they have people around them that help them through those first few months or years. Maybe they even help fund. So there's actually already a kind of, unspoken kind of advisory board that's already there. I feel like most companies within about a year, they start to think about a more formalized advisory board of people that are not just family and friends and investors. And I actually just got a call the other day from a startup, and they're in Ireland. And he said, I'm really expanding my technology and I need someone in construction and who knows a lot about government contracts. And so he wants that person on his advisory board to help open doors. So for him, it's a door opener on the advisory board. For others, it's people who understand the business and are just trusted advisors. But I do feel like for the first few years, an advisory board is very much a door opener, right, for new business, new opportunities, and things like that. And then once the company gets a little bit more, let's call it mature, but a maturity can be after 3 years, 4 years, and perhaps when they get a significant investor, especially an institutional investor, like a private equity firm or a VC firm, sometimes all those people can disappear and they will bring on their own people. So then it would be a more formalized board of directors. I think there are a lot of founders, they try to delay that as much as possible because it is a lot of work to set up board meetings, to organize, to work with board directors. It's not easy. And it is a distraction. So, as a founder, you have to decide, do I want a formalized board or not? And then if a company is thinking about getting a more significant investment or IPOing or anything like that, then they absolutely need to be quite buttoned up with their board of directors. And they need to have people on there that know about governance. So again, the shift comes from, right from the start when they need people to open doors all the way through to people who actually know how to run businesses and know how to grow businesses, and then who know how to take them public. So you see how these boards have totally different kind of purposes, right, for businesses. And when I work with individuals who want to get onto boards, I often spend a lot of time with them figuring out where would be their good fit. Because you might be a great fit for an early stage company if you're the kind of person who can open doors for them. But you might also be a terrible fit and you might be better with a more mature business. So that, businesses want something different depending on where they're at in their sort of life cycle.
Now that makes a lot of sense. So you mentioned, door opener, which is a very, common, board role for a board member role. What are some of the other 2 or 3 very common, board member roles that boards have?
Yeah, so there are three things that boards care about, and CEOs care about. One is growth, the second is transformation, and the third is risk. So at any point in time, I think any business, growth can be different for different businesses, right? So your growth could be, expanding into a new market, or growth could be, making sure the competition doesn't take your clients, right? So like there's two types of growth, and then transformation. I think pretty much every business is transforming at all times with new technologies and things like that. And then risk is all about sort of the insight of risk, the oversight of risk, and then the foresight of risk, like what's coming around the corner and what should we be aware of. And sometimes mitigating risk can help you grow and transform. So it all kind of, the three of them sort of work together, but they're all really important. So I would say for anyone who is looking to build a board career, you have to focus on those three things. And you really have to understand what the company wants, right? It's critical that what pain points these companies have. So yes, relationships are good, but I would say there's only a portion of people that can really do that type of job because not everybody has those big relationships at the top, right? But I think a lot of very experienced business people, growth, transformation, and risk are areas that they're very familiar with.
So I'll give you this scenario. A, founder, CEO, all of a sudden gets a great, private equity investment, and they bring in a board, and all of a sudden the founder is going from running the company his or her own way to a much more formalized process with board oversight. What advice would you give a founder that's going, through that transition, which could be very, very different from the way that they're used to running the show?
Yeah, I mean, founders are going to some founders are potentially going to struggle with that. They have lost a little bit of control, but I think when you sell a large portion of your business to someone, the expectation is that you're going to lose that control. There is also the possibility of you being removed from your position. If the board deem you to be the wrong fit, then they will. Or if you are not necessarily the right fit for that role, and there is someone who's a better fit, but then that's for the good and the great of the company, right? So I think in some cases, founders can step aside. I'm actually on the advisory board of a phenomenal business that has grown quite exponentially called Half Day. It's an iced tea business, and the two founders are amazing entrepreneurs. But they recently decided that a CEO from, and I forget the name of one of the huge brands he was at. I think I forget the name of the brand, but anyway, one of the CEO just came in and is now the CEO. They're still the founders, right? They're still sort of the chairs, and they're still very much involved in the leadership and everyday work of the business. But they've chosen a new CEO. So I think for some businesses, that's how you grow, right? But some CEOs do get in the way, and they don't want to be removed, and they want to keep their position. And I see that happening a lot in the tech world. This is obviously the consumer products world, so it's a little different. But I think in the tech world, especially when you have a very tech savvy CEO, they may be great at creating the product, create the technology, and they know how to run a business of 1 million, 2 million. But once it gets to 10, 50, 100, it may not be in their, in their wheelhouse. So I think it's a good thing. And I also think that it's also a challenge, right, for people. The other thing that you're gonna lose when you bring in a lot of this is, again, you are the one that is having to manage that group. I don't care what people say. If you're a small business, you don't have a general counsel, you don't have maybe even a CFO, maybe you have a VP finance, right? And they don't know how to do it either. And so you have to learn very quickly. And so there are places you can go to sort of and mentors I'm sure you can get that would help you through that process. And I would strongly recommend it. The other recommendation is to be just very authentic and genuine and say, hey, this is my first time. I would really appreciate any guidance from the people on the board who have done this before, right? I would appreciate any guidance on how I should be thinking about this. So, as a founder, you're not losing control. You can be honest and genuine and transparent about where your strengths are. I mean, that's why you're the CEO of the business, and that's how you founded the business. But you don't necessarily have to, always know everything. So just be open to that. And then the other thing I would say is, if you're a small business, you don't have a general counsel, you don't have a, maybe even a CFO, maybe you have a VP finance, right? And they don't know how to do it either. And so there are places you can go to sort of and mentors I'm sure you can get that would help you through that process. And I would strongly recommend it. The other recommendation is to be just very authentic and genuine and say, hey, this is my first time. I would really appreciate any guidance from the people on the board who have done this before, right? I would appreciate any guidance on how I should be thinking about this. So, as a founder, you're not losing control. the other thing is, once you have a board, yeah, I mean, there's people now watching the numbers, looking at the number. Not that you aren't, right? As a founder, I'm sure all founders are looking at the numbers every minute of every day. But there are groups now. My advice would be to take advantage of those experienced people and to figure out if they can provide you with great advice or not. I mean, you don't have to take all of their advice, um, but I would say there's an art to leveraging your board. I've seen businesses that do not leverage their board at all. They're almost just like figureheads, in a presentation deck. And then there are others that are actually very active and are engaged with the CEO, and that brings a lot of value to the founder, CEO, and the business. So, some pieces of advice there to share really for your audience, but yeah, it's not always easy. There can be struggles there.
No, I love that advice. Just be completely transparent, saying, "Hey, guys, gals, this is my first time in this seat with a board, and please help me, get through this because you've done it before, I haven't. So together we can make this work."
Absolutely. And the board want you to be successful. You got to remember that, right? Like they want you to be successful because they've put a lot of money behind you. So, this isn't a case of them wanting to create more problems for you or drama or anything else like that. So you've got to remember that they should have the best interest of the business at heart.
So in my experience, I have spoken with a lot of founders and CEOs that, and this is fortunately in the minority, but it definitely happens. They have really contentious board members, contentious board meetings, and, people that just cause them to pull their hair out. And in your experience, how often does this happen, and what recourse does a CEO founder have when somebody is really not there for the common good and are just being disruptive and not productive?
Yeah, so to sort of tell you a quick story, every time I speak to very experienced board directors and I ask them, what was your best experience on a board? What did you enjoy the most out of the board that you were on that was your favorite? And every single time they say it was the people. It wasn't, they never say product, company, this, that, and the, nope, it's always people. So I think to your point, the dynamics, we call them boardroom dynamics. It's basically a nicer, more professional term for saying, you know, people who are a bit of a pain in the butt, right? So, and they can cause disruption and they can hold you back from making progress. And perhaps they disagree with the way the direction the company is going in. And a little bit like I don't know if you know the story of the activist investor at Disney recently, and some of these stories, right, where they. But I mean, we can understand why they were being disruptive because they were seeing bad results, right, that were coming out of Disney. But I think when it comes to the dynamics with people, at the end of the day, there is always going to be always going to be some sort of dynamic. However, I have a list of attributes that I work with my clients, and these are attributes that board members have. And I'll go through a couple with you. One of them is they're very good at asking questions that don't make the other person look bad, right? So I don't want to ask you a question that makes you look like you've made a mistake. I want to ask you a question that's friendly and not leading into some sort of trap, right, for the CEO, but it's helping the CEO figure out if this is the right move or not. So think through, how you ask questions in a board meeting. Are you asking questions that gets people riled up, right? And in which case that could create dynamics. The second thing, and there's many of them, but I'll just go through a few of them, is sort of your humbleness, right? We don't want big egos in the room. Having a big ego and thinking you know it all is not going to help you work with other people. And then the third one is collaboration. As a board, often people talk about them as teams. They are not teams. Okay, they don't work together. They each of them should be independent, working on behalf of the stakeholders and shareholders. Sure, some of them might represent the same shareholders, but that's who they work on behalf. They're not, working together as a friendly team. So you can vote and you can vote against everyone else, right? You can say something different, but collaboration is key. And collaboration means when the board comes together, listens to all the ideas, and then comes up with the best solution. And then proposes that to the leadership team in a way that doesn't make them look bad in front of their peers, right? And in front of other board directors. So I think when you go to hire, and this maybe take a step back, if you already have a disruptive board member, you might want to think about getting rid of them, or you just have to sort of grin and bear it. But I would say that if you are considering new board members onto your board, I would strongly recommend testing for these attributes, testing for their personality, as well as their skills. Well, this guy's got, hundreds of relationships in this particular area. Great. But they have a terrible character and attitude, right? Like, we don't want them on our board. This is not going to be good for the dynamic of the board. So they need to be the right fit, right? And then to your sort of second comment about like people who are just loud and disruptive, I think if that happens, you need to talk to the chair of the board, and you need to have a frank conversation that says, hey, we need to be managing this a little better. And we need to be having a better conversation with them, because again, this is about, we all want the same outcome essentially, right? They just want to get at it in a different way. So you just have to, it's about collaboration. But, the way I'm talking, it's like perfect world. It's never a perfect world, right? And it's never easy. Right. So I would say for anyone who's considering getting an advisory board, or they're going to be setting up a corporate board, or they already have one, it sort of comes with the territory, right? You are going to have to deal with these things. But I think if you have the right personality and you're transparent, you deal with these things head on, you can work to reduce, right, the impact of it.
Agreed. Agreed. So we talk a lot on this show about exits, preparing for an exit, going through due diligence, and then actually, consummating the transaction. In your experience, what role have boards played in helping a company, get to that proverbial finish line of an exit?
Well, there are people out there who have exited multiple businesses. They've acquired businesses, they've been acquired, and there are three parts to exit, right? There's sort of the due diligence and everything that you need to do prior. And then there's the negotiation, right? And the relationship management. And then there's the integration part. Ideally, you will find someone who has been involved in all three on multiple occasions. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a company like yours or a company of your size or anything like that. Sure, if you're tiny and they've only ever worked with huge, then there may be a little bit of disconnect there. But I think just someone who is very familiar with that process, and they don't. I mean, and again, they could maybe have more of a leadership like CEO background or a finance background, so they understand, or maybe investment banker, been in an M&A group of an investment bank or something like that. I also see former corporate lawyers from M&A also being quite useful. Not, again, can't use them as lawyers for free, but or whatever amount you pay for them to be on your board. But having someone who has been through it and understands that perspective could be quite helpful. So I think when you're exiting a business, you definitely need to have a long time before you exit. You need to have the right people on your board. Another really interesting group of companies that are really are exiting businesses, I think probably now more than ever, is this family-owned business. I feel like there's sort of like a generational shift going on. A lot of families are not passing their businesses down, so they're deciding to sell. And that exit is very unique. So if you're a family-owned business, and that means not just me owning it, but my grandparents or my parents or, my whatever.
I like a multi-generational type business.
Right, right. That sort of family business, I would strongly recommend you look at people who have been through an exit of a family-owned business, because it's very, very unique, that the type of work you would be doing and the type of style that the family has, the values they have, and the emotional connection, right, that exists. If I'm a founder, I still have an emotional connection, but if I'm a CEO of a company and it's being acquired, sure, I'm probably gonna make some money or whatever, so it's in my interest, but it's not an emotional connection, right? So the family-owned businesses, and I see a lot of them being exiting now and being acquired. I see that as, again, make sure your board has the right people on it to advise you on what to do, especially if you've never done it before.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up family-owned businesses. I see that, like you know, coming up more and more often these days. And I just had somebody on the show the other week named Adam Hill, um, who specializes in helping family-owned businesses go through the exit process. And to your point, I couldn't agree more. It's very, very unique to a non-family-owned business, and it's really weird how the current generation just doesn't want to get into the family business. And this multi-generational success is they're not forced to go through an exit, but with the kids not wanting to take it over, this is the direction they're going in.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I have a client of mine actually. Her and her husband started a business, a very successful. It's in the food business, agriculture, and yeah, so hugely successful. And you know, they've tried to get their kids involved so many times, but they just want to go in a completely different direction. So now they're considering, what their exit looks like, and they are actually building a board, which I was helping them do. So it's it is hard. It's very hard, and actually they're quite sad that their children don't want to take the business. Well, because here's the thing: as soon as someone acquires your business, you completely lose control there, and they can they can just take your product and remove your brand and completely change it, and so many years of work, I see it happen a lot, so many years of work results in just your product being sort of almost thrown in the trash for a lot of people, right? And then they're sort of upset, especially if their brand is lost. So they want it to carry on and they want it to be generational, but that's not always the case.
Exactly. I mean, there is another option, right? There are many professional CEOs out there. So if a family-owned business has the next generation that doesn't want to take it over, there is an opportunity for them to bring in a professional CEO to run it and move it forward. But then, going back to my earlier point of contentious board meetings, the examples that I've heard in my experience are these professional CEOs that come into family-run businesses, and that doesn't, even though they know exactly what they're doing and they know how to run a company, they have these contentious board members, which are generational, that are giving them a really hard time because they're not quote unquote family.
Oh, that's a typical situation as well. Yeah, I've seen a lot of that. Yeah, again, I think people often and consultants often advise on the sort of best case scenario, and we forget that actually it's never that, right? There's always something to deal with that you hadn't thought about, and there's always a person that might try. And again, maybe they have their reasons for it, right? And they have their good reasons for it, but they're preventing you from moving ahead. So yes, it's a tough spot.
Agreed. Agreed. So speaking about tough, Ironman is tough. And you and I both share the thoughts that there's a lot of similarities between endurance sports like Ironman and business. Planning, preparation, execution, pivot, setbacks, et cetera, et cetera. Two-part question: what got you into triathlons and Ironman, and how have you seen your participation in that sport improve your business career?
Yeah, so I first got involved in sort of endurance sports at quite a young age, actually. I was at boarding school, and I remember I was running, around the school or something. This was in the UK, and I was running, and one of the teachers said, "Oh, you should do more running. So you should run a lot." So I was like, "Okay." So yeah, so I started doing cross country and all of these things, and then I sort of didn't do too much at college, and then after college decided to start doing marathons and longer distance running, and then triathlons, and so and then swimming, and I've always enjoyed swimming and biking and running. And then it just again you just kept extending the distance, right? But no, I really enjoy it. I think there's a certain sense of achievement, of accomplishment, physically as well. I like to keep physically fit. It actually helps me work better. I think I'm on top of my game when I'm physically fit. I can do more. I'm more awake. I'm more alert. Right. I can focus better. And I strongly believe that you know you you will just perform a lot better in your mind when your body is physically fit. So that has always been something for me. And also, I don't want to get old and be frail, and I don't want to get old and be struggling to get up off a chair. So that's kind of my goal as well, is to just keep the muscles, right? And there's a lot of studies done on that they say, your lower body muscles are actually some of the most important for you as you get older. And so I'm not suggesting I'm going to be that old that quickly, but it's 20 years away for me, right? Like, it's 20 years away for a lot of folks. And so for me, it's always been about health. It's always been about fitness. I think that there's also a piece of it that is related to, I don't know if you know sort of David Goggins and people like that who talk a lot about long distance
I
sports. That I read his book, and yeah.
David Gunn he's a beast, and he's definitely on the extreme end of a lot of things. But yes, I know him well. I've read all his books. I follow him. He's incredibly inspirational, but a little bit over the top.
He is, but I read his book, and there were so many things in there that resonated, right? So I do morning, exercise, and he said, I just love going in and beating everybody before 6 a.m., right? Like, he's always like, he's already around like a marathon, right? It's 6. Well, I don't think, again, I'm not that extreme, but there is a sense that I was like, wow, I've already ran 4 miles, 5 miles. I've already swam. I've already done my training. And now I'm sitting at my desk at 8 a.m. People are coming in late to 8:30, and I feel good about that. Like, that's for me a competition almost with, how much can I get done before the day has even started? And you sort of feel like a sense of accomplishment. So if you take his extremist sort of part of it and you kind of flip it, I think it's actually good for people to feel like they're achieving something. And so, we don't get a lot of that every day, right? Because some days you have bad days at work. Sometimes your business numbers are down. Sometimes things are not working. If you get into the mindset of a loser, of someone who's not achieving, everything's destined to fail, in my opinion. And so everything is about your attitude, and everything is about how you approach your day and how you approach your week and the goal settings and things like that. And for long distance racing, you need all of that to succeed. You need to have the goals in place. You need to be disciplined. You need to wake up. You need to avoid eating the donuts that are out in the office, right? You need to not put the vanilla cream in your coffee every day. That's wrong. Like, and again, it's not the big things. I eat bad food. Everybody does.
Drink your coffee black, nothing in it.
Well, this is life, right? Like, life it's not easy. It's not, there are so many temptations. And I'm from Europe, and I think you are too, right? And I think, there's different foods, there's different options, there's different, I think if you walk into a grocery store in the United States versus a grocery store in Europe, you'll be astounded at the difference, right? They look different. Foods are different. Actually, foods are different all over the world. You go to Asia, it's different too. So, there's a difference there, but there are also some foods that you should avoid. And I think people think because the food is available, it's okay to eat. And so some nutritional education, which is what you do when you train, right? You know what's good for you and what's not. And actually, I would say, I don't think I ever read a book. I actually tried the food. So I ate the donut, and then I went for a run, and it was awful, right? So, or I didn't eat well the night before, and I had a terrible race the next day, and I started to put 2 and 2 together. Saying that, though, there are times when I've had, a few cocktails the night before, and I've run my personal best, so I'll take that back slightly. Well, everything's about balance and moderation. But I do believe that, this long distance racing, you feel your body, you understand your body, you get fit, you get healthy in the mind, healthy in the body, and that helps you do your job, and that helps you gain respect too from people and peers and suppliers and vendors and employees, right? So I think the discipline is what helps you run a business effectively as well.
It helps so much, and I talk about this a lot. Like, when I started this endurance sports hobby, and I started it later on in life, it was my midlife crisis. Well, I hope not, because I started at 40, so I hope that means I don't finish at 80. But I started this endurance hobby at the age of 40, and after a couple of months of training, my Garmin watch would create all of these reports, right? about, pace, about distance, about heart rate, about endurance. And I realized after a certain time that I had more information and reports and charts on me personally than I did on my business. Not that we didn't have reports at work, but I would be lying if I said like we were experts in KPIs and measurements and charts and projections and actuals and all that jazz. Long story short, we went through this transformation within like a 2-month period where we went from having these subjective, status meetings as a leadership team to meetings based on data and meetings based on trends and projections and meeting or exceeding or not hitting projections and why. And it radically changed the performance of the executive team and then the company. And we saw things improve across the board. So to your point, a healthy lifestyle, a healthy mind, healthy body definitely translates well into business performance. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, no, and I think, if someone were to say, how do you get it, right? Like, how do you get discipline? Um, that's always a hard one, right? Like, how do you train yourself to be disciplined? I think that you have to want whatever it is really badly, right? Like, you see these people go from, 200 pounds to like 140 pounds, right? They lose a huge amount of weight or even more, right? And they're just so dedicated and disciplined. But the year before, why weren't they? What triggered that? What made them change, right? Was it just something clicked, something changed in their heads? But I feel like when I have a goal and I really want to achieve it, it's something I really, really want, then I will put all my passion and energy and go after it. So that's a big one for me. I think you have to really want it. You can't just say, "Well, I'm gonna, make sure every morning I do this and that." Nah, you have to want it, right? It has to really be something that's there.
Now, wanting it makes the achievement go a lot easier versus just like willpower, because like willpower is hard, and eventually, willpower will die away. It may work great for a couple of days, couple of weeks, even a couple of months, but if it's pure willpower you're counting on, that's not as effective as just a specific why you're doing it. I totally agree. So your superpower is achieving big goals. Can
Trying,
can you
but not always. I don't always, but yeah.
are there any recent ones that you can share where you overcame adversity and got something big done?
Sometimes goals kind of come to me. They don't, I don't create them necessarily, but they sort of pop up and I think, oh, that would be kind of interesting to do. So I've always been interested in writing a book and I'm not a good writer. And I think I would procrastinate sitting down and writing hundreds of pages, right? So I've always thought, oh, it would be great. I'd love to share my experience, but I don't even know where to start. But but like anything, when you wanna do something, I strongly recommend you tell people. So don't keep it to yourself. Well, if you wanna run a marathon, tell people. If you want to run a 5K, tell people. They might go, "Oh, we're doing one in a couple of months. Come train with us." Now you got a whole team of people to train with you, right? Or you might say, I've always thought about starting a business, but I don't know I don't know the tech part." Someone goes, My brother, he knows all about tech. He's been wanting to start a business for 3 years. I should introduce you." So what I started doing is I started telling people I wanted to write a book, and I came across an author and I didn't even know she was an author, but I just was talking to a group of people, and she's written multiple books on career changes and things like that. And I want to write a book about career change, and I want to write a book about um, career transition onto boards, right? So she and I co-authoring a book now, and we're on page number 180 something, right? So yeah, I'm working with her. She's like my kind of accountability buddy. And we're writing it together. And sure, I'm inputting all the sort of technical piece, and she's helping with the career transition coach part. So I'm starting to realize that goal. The other goal I had recently is I said I wanted to learn something new. Do you know when you get to like I'm 46 and I feel like sometimes you're just doing the same thing over and over again. I'm biking, I'm swimming, I'm doing all this stuff. I'm really not learning anything. And I think, or I'm not learning a new skill. So I think, sometimes you have to put yourself in a really awkward situation and you have to learn something brand new. So someone said to me, "Have you thought about jujitsu?" I said, "Brazilian jiu-jitsu? I don't even know what that is." Right. So They said, "Yeah, I do it. Let me tell you all about it." And they showed me, and I was like, "Oh, this could be quite interesting. Let me see if I can do this." So I've been to a couple of classes, so that's something I'm starting. So again, like you have to sort of put the message out to people that you're looking to achieve something, and getting help from others is actually the easiest way. And actually, I think I may have told you this story, but and I've told many people this story. The way that I got into the way I got into Ironman was I met a woman who told me she had done 8 Ironman, and, she was not she wasn't like a super athlete, she's just a normal person, right? And I thought, "Wow, okay, hang on, I thought it was super athletes that did this, I didn't know." And then,
No, that's the point. Let's not gloss over that. I keep telling this. I say this till I'm blue in the face. An everyday Joe or can complete a full distance Ironman race. It is possible.
yes,
It's not just for the elite athletes out there. I was a complete couch potato, and I've done over a dozen full distance Ironman. And any like their tagline says, anything is possible.
and you're spot on, but she told me what you do need, and it's probably discipline, but she didn't say that. She said, "You just need time." She said, "You need time. You need time to prepare, time to train, time nutrition, time to just, focus. You need time to focus on this, otherwise you'll never complete it." So that's when I started doing it. So, you've got to be inspired by people. Other people will help you complete your goals. I think people think that it's this sort of solo effort. It's not. And actually, now that I've started this Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which, by the way, I'm not even off the first belt, so I'm not really going to start, throwing people and strangling them on the floor yet. But I'm gonna take this slow, and I'm actually really enjoying learning something brand new, and it's good for the brain, right? It's good to keep you focused, and it's good to keep your creativity. I think creativity is really important, and it helps you think outside of what you normally think about. And also, jujitsu is interesting. I kind of liken it to rock climbing. If anyone's done rock climbing, you got no phone, you can't look at your phone while you're rock climbing, right? So there's no distractions, and you have to be laser focused on everything that is going on. So I'm climbing up this wall. I need to be looking ahead of me. Where's my feet? Where is everything? Am I going to fall? Like you're very heavily focused in that moment. Your mind is only on one thing. And the same with jujitsu. You have to see, is the person, where is their next move going to be? And it's strategic. And and sure, you're just messing around on a mat. I'm not, going down dark alleys and attacking people just yet. But will that be me next? But you're on a mat and it's all controlled and everything else. But you focus just on what's going on, because you start thinking about other things, you lose, right? So I think that is good for the brain, and that is good for the mind, and it's good for a person as well. So I think advice would be tell others, talk about it, see if you can, get help from others who have maybe done it before.
Yeah, there's so many people out there, like people that are successful in any discipline, whether it's a sporting discipline or in business, I think are always willing to help. And so many others are just hesitant to ask for help. And when they do, I think most people are very pleasantly surprised with the amount of folks that would assist them and just, pay it forward, to the universe, right? Whether it be from a business perspective, from an Ironman perspective. I mean, people reach out to me all the time and they are shocked that I actually respond with advice. I'm like, why are you surprised? I love, paying it forward. And I received a ton of help, both in the business world and in the endurance world. And I'm enjoying paying it forward, and everybody else will as well.
Well, that's it, and I'm sure you've helped other people get into Ironman. I helped a friend of mine do it. I told him the same thing. I said, "It just takes time," and he went, "Oh, really?" He had the same sort of aha moment that I had, and then off he went and did about 4, I think. So you do have to pay it forward. I agree with you, and the same in business. And I don't know if there are any entrepreneurs listening in, but one thing I would recommend is that you have an entrepreneur kind of network around you, because we all help each other. When I have a difficulty with something, I usually give my friend a call. He tells me about his big wins. We're both solo. Well, we both have contractors and people that work with us, but we're sort of the solo leaders. And he's extremely helpful and very encouraging. So I feel like that's an important part of it. Yeah.
I think that's huge. I mean, I'm a huge fan of peer groups. I was a member of something called the CEO Project, which is a CEO, peer group program led by an executive coach. And after I sold my company, the owner of the program asked me to come back as an advisor this time and start a group of my own. And the benefit that members get from speaking with other CEOs is tremendous. Even CEOs from other industries. So I can't speak highly enough about peer groups and the types of programs that you just mentioned, because there's just so much great advice that you can get, that it's super rewarding. So in the time we have left, can you please share a little bit more about specifically what you do with the Boardroom company and how you help individuals get on boards?
Yeah, so I work with three types of people: people who have never served on a corporate board and haven't really started and not sure how to go about, doing going on a search and finding opportunities. The second group of people I work with are people who are currently on corporate boards or nonprofits, or right, they have some board experience, but they want to either get onto bigger boards or different types of boards, so they want to diversify a little bit. And then the third group are people who have been trying to get on a board for a long time, but have not been successful and are not sure why. And so I help to sort of redirect and teach them some of the things that I've learned along the way. So I started working with boards in 2002. And about 8 years ago, I started working one-to-one with people who wanted to build a corporate board career based on the experience that I've had working with not just boards, but everyone in the market. And today, I currently work with senior professionals who are seeking corporate boards, and I run them through a program which helps them get board, what we call board ready, which is basically knowing what kind of board is right for you, having the right brand, saying the right thing, having the right paperwork, the LinkedIn is all up to date, and then actually going out to your network and having the right conversation. And again, just like our conversation about, how do you achieve a big goal? You got to tell people. So my advice is never to go out and ask people for help. I mean, that's kind of embarrassing. How did you get to be a CEO of a company and now you need help getting on a board, right? You shouldn't need that. So what you should do though is just make people aware of your desire to join a corporate board. And if you are saying the right things with the right language, and the language is board level language, we could have a whole other session about that. Then you will come across as board ready, and people will want you on their board, right? Like this will be someone that'll be like, wow, yes, this is what I need. So this whole process is not like a job search, and I think a lot of people think it's like a job search. Where do I find board role opportunities? There's no advertising of board roles, right? You have to go out and do the work. So there's a little bit of work involved, but I help guide them. I help them avoid the landmines, save time, save resources, and more importantly, save their reputation. Because again, no one wants to fail, right? No one wants to fail at something. So sometimes it's about finding what works and then going after the thing that works.
I agree. Putting the word out into the universe creates incredible opportunities. So all you have to do is let the universe know. And by universe, in this case, it's LinkedIn or maybe other forums, and opportunities will find you. I mean, I just did something very similar. So I just reached out to literally a handful of contacts saying, hey, we haven't spoken in a while. I'm getting into public speaking. I deliver inspirational keynotes on setting and achieving big goals. And voila, I'm delivering a keynote in 2 weeks to a 300-person audience on goal setting. So just, it was as easy as just putting the word out, and it works in a variety of different cases.
Don't get me wrong. If you put the word out, you've got to be ready to say the right thing, right? So you were probably prepared with the speech you were going to give, what the outcome is going to be. You have to show up so that they go, oh yeah, we want you on our stage, right? Like you've got a presence, right? You've got to have that executive presence. So there's a lot of preparation that goes in before you go out to your network. And I think, again, just knowing how to prepare for something, you increase your chances of being successful. So, yep, I'm a big believer in others helping. And I help others too, right? I think it's a kind of what goes around comes around, right? You have to help other generations too. I mean, I was speaking to the University of Elmhurst the other day. They have a e-accelerator, which is like for helping people to get jobs and helping people to start businesses. And they've got this amazing program there for young people and who want to be entrepreneurs and, learn about tech and things like that. And I was speaking to them and, things like that. You've got to help younger generations. People help me along the way. So I feel like it's the way you give back.
You've shared a lot of great information. Obviously, you offer a wonderful service for people that are interested in board positions. What is the best way for people to contact you?
Yeah, so you can go to my website. It's theboardroomco.com, and there's a contact there, or connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Naomi Kent. Just search for Naomi Kent Boardroom or Boards, and I'll probably appear because that's a lot of what I talk about. Um, but uh, but no, I think it's a phenomenal space, and I like to inspire people to think about their careers a little differently. But I will say this: I'm also realistic, and I also like to give people realistic expectations and goals that they can achieve. So again, that's a big part of it. I like winning. I like winning myself, and I like to see others win. So that's my goal.
Fantastic. We'll put all that information in the show notes. Naomi, thank you so much for being on the show. You're a wealth of knowledge on a variety of topics, boards and Ironman. It's very, very near and dear to my heart. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you very much for having me.
You bet. You bet. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this episode of Built to Finish. We hope you enjoy the show. If you did, please do like and subscribe. It really does help the show a lot, and it helps me to get some great guests like Naomi. And if you found any of the information here useful to somebody in your network, please do share this episode with them. Thank you again for tuning in today. That's a wrap for this episode of Built to Finish. Thank you for tuning in. For show notes and more details, head over to podcast.stephenpivnik.com. Special thank you to our sponsor, Acresis, offering tailored, high-impact advisory services that help founders get to their finish line with a strategic acquisition or majority investor recapitalization. Catch you next week.